All right, I am going to go ahead. It's about 9:02, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Thank you first and foremost for joining me tonight. I'm excited that you're taking the time to be here. Definitely understand we're all busy, and so when it comes to finding the time to sit down and make yourself go through any sort of training, I know that it takes commitment, and so thanks for being here with me tonight. Tonight I'm going over how to analyze rental properties for cash flow, and really when it comes to tonight's training, my goals for this live training are, one, I want to make sure you understand why cash flow and ROI should be key components when you're analyzing potential deals. I'm going to talk about what important numbers you need to look for when you actually are running the property analysis, and quote unquote running numbers is what we typically call it. Another thing is I want to talk about how to use an analyzer or a calculator, some sort of tool or resource to help you quickly estimate the ROI and cash flow. And I'm also going to talk a little bit about why you absolutely need an ROI standard as an investor that helps you delineate between what deals to pursue and what not to pursue. So I'm going to kind of start this training just by going over about two of these goals. And then once we jump into the actual analysis portion, I'll kind of switch my screen over and you'll be able to see the analyzer and you'll be able to see the listing, and I'll be going through some stuff there. So bear with me as the screens are changing some, but I felt like tonight with the actual running through the numbers, like you guys want to see that. You don't necessarily want to see my face when I'm talking about running numbers. So this way you can see it live. You'll be able to come back to it since it's on Facebook, because this lives on Facebook even after the live training. So as we go through, if you have questions, put them in the comments section. I'll hang around at the end for a little bit as well to answer any kind of questions related to investing in rental property that you guys have. So let's go ahead and jump right in and talk about the first thing I want to talk about, which is why cash flow and ROI should be key components when analyzing potential deals. So first off, depending on how new you are to investing in rental property, I will start by just kind of quickly defining cash flow and ROI if you don't know, because 4 or 5 years ago, I was totally in your shoes. Kirk and I used to argue about this because I just couldn't wrap my head around what ROI stood for. So I will take a second here to those newbies that are here just to let you know what those two things are, because they're really critical when it comes to understanding and running numbers on properties. So when we're talking about cash flow is and specifically I'm talking about positive cash flow. Cash flow is the monthly amount of cash that you earn each month after all expenses are paid on your property. So for instance, let's just, for the sake of easy numbers, say that you get $1,000 a month for rent for a rental property that you own. And let's say that you're all in expenses. So this would include your property, your principal for your loan, if you have a loan, your interest, your taxes, your insurance, any kind of utilities that you might pay, any kind of HOAs, any kind of property management, any and all money that goes to the upkeep of this rental, let's say costs $700 a month. So your cash flow, your positive cash flow would be $300 a year, right? So that would be $300 a year. Now, your ROI then, obviously, if you're making $300 per month on this property and you take that times 12, you're looking at making $3,600 per year, right? So you make $300 of cash flow each month. When you times that by 12, you're making $3,600 a year in positive cash flow. And again, that's just all cash that you're making. That's all of your expenses are paid. And the reality is, guys, that's not even taking into consideration any of the perks that you get that you don't really feel. So things like depreciation, mortgage interest reductions, those sorts of things, or deductions, those sorts of things. So that's just like the straight cash that you're earning a year. Now, if you want to determine the ROI stands for your return on investment. So that's this whole idea of you invest a certain amount of money into an asset, right? And you do that in order to make money. And so your return on your investment is typically seen as a percentage, and it's a percentage of that money that you invest. So let's say, just for, again, easy number's sake, let's say that you invested $20,000 into this property. So right now we're doing, and I'm going to kind of type as I go here just so I don't lose you guys in numbers. So let's say we're making $300 per month in positive cash flow. And that ends up equaling $3,600 per year in positive cash flow. So that's what you're looking at, what you've made. Now, if I wanted to find out that return on investment, I would take that $3,600 and I would divide that by the total cash that you invested in this property. So let's just say, for easy sake, that you invested $20,000 into this property, okay? So you make $3,600 a month or a year on it, you put $20,000 into it, you're looking at about an 18% return on your investment. So that's like a pretty high return on investment. When you think of the reality that a lot of stocks and those sorts of things, I mean, you're looking at like 10 and under percent, 8%, maybe even on mutual funds, or even I know we get some like REIT dividends and those sorts of things, and we get 5 to 6% on those. So, the fact that you could potentially get 18% on an investment property is huge. And hopefully right there, it goes to show you the power of investing in rental property. So, I wanted to just kind of start off by saying, making sure that you understood what cash flow meant, making sure that you understand what ROI means, because I'm going to be throwing those terms around all night throughout this training. And why they should be key components when it comes to analyzing your potential deals is because the reality is that those are the two, I guess, the two major numbers that are going to tell you whether or not a property is worth going after. And that's really the long and the short of it. The long and the short of it is those are the two numbers that are going to help you determine if a property is worth going after or not, right? So, and I'm going to talk about kind of next the idea of having a standard or a goal. But you need to go into investing in rental property with some sort of, and whether this is by yourself or whether this is with a partner, but some sort of expectation as to what you expect to get in cash flow, what you expect to get as a return. And so any time that you run numbers on Analyzer, on some sort of calculator, whatever it is, you're going to be able to quickly, once you throw all the numbers in, quickly look at, okay, what's my cash flow? What's my return? Does it meet my goal? No, yes, boom. I know whether or not I should move on, right? So once you get this process down, and, I preach a lot about the idea that investing in rental property is a process. And, Kirk and I now, we're five-ish years into investing. I mean, we have the process down. I mean, it's just rinse and repeat. We do the same thing over and over again when it goes about getting a deal. Maybe there's some tweaks. Maybe we try out a new strategy here and there, but the general gist of it is pretty much the same. When it comes to analyzing a deal, you're going to typically analyze those first deals in a similar manner, right? It might change when you start getting into maybe more complex deals. It may get more complex if you start to look at bigger deals, but when you're looking at those initial, single family properties, townhouses, condos, even just a duplex, the process is going to be similar. So these are the two numbers that are going to help determine. Now, the other thing that I want to talk about before I actually start running through the property analysis is why you need an ROI standard as an investor, and how that's going to help you delineate between what deals to pursue and what not to pursue. And I just kind of alluded to this a second ago. Another big thing that I harp on a lot is when you're just getting started, even if you don't know a lot, really setting down and asking yourself some tough questions in terms of, why you're getting started with this. Like, what is your why? Why do you want to invest in rental property? What do you envision that life looking like once you own a property or two? What does it look like for you? Are you self-managing? Are you not? Are you making a certain amount of money? Are you saving that? Are you using it to live off of? What does that look like for you? And then what is going to be your ROI standard or line in the sand that you, no matter what, will not go under? And I say this, and it's super, super important because ultimately it's going to save you so much time. It's going to save you so much time. And I was actually just writing a blog post to be going live here in a couple weeks today on Rental Rookie, and I was talking about even in small markets, right? At any point in time, there are a ton of properties for sale on the market. When I was writing this post today, I went on and I looked, and right now in my little small Western Pennsylvania podunk town, there's 229 properties for sale right now, right? So, you know, we're not looking at 800 to 1,000, but still 229 is a lot of property in a small little area. And could you imagine if I had no standard for ROI or no kind of like mission or goal or direction as to what I was looking at? Like, I'd have to run an analysis on every single one of those properties. And that's not, you know, saving any kind of time. That to me sounds overwhelming and overbearing. And frankly, I wouldn't want to do that, right? So if you're just getting started and that's what you were thinking, like, yeah, no kidding, I wouldn't want to do that either. So you have to have some sort of standard in which is going to be your line in the sand. So when you run numbers on a property, right, if something comes up and it seems like price-wise it might be a good deal, or, you know, the pictures look like it might be ready for move-in, or maybe the pictures, you know, show that it maybe needs some work and you could go in and force some appreciation. So you decide to run some numbers on the property and on the deal. And once you figure out what that ROI is, it should be easy for you to be like, okay, you know what, my ROI standard, let's just say, for example, here is 15%. And if any time I run just the kind of quick and raw, dirty, I always like to call it like the quick and raw and dirty analysis. So you're just like, whatever numbers you can find right off the bat, throw them in and just see if it's worth your time, right? And once you do that, and let's say that that property came back at that 18% example I used earlier, then you might say, okay, yeah, I'm willing to, you know, make a phone call about this. I'm willing to maybe go see the property, or maybe have my realtor go take a look at it, right? Or I'm going to make some calls to get more accurate numbers on the deal to see how, you know, how close this quick little analysis was, right? But if I run those same numbers, and it's a 10% ROI on my quick estimate, I'm not even going to waste my time. You know, it took me 30 seconds to plug in those numbers, maybe a little bit longer, a couple of minutes. I would quickly saw that it didn't meet my 15% standard. Boom, I move on, right? So when I say that you need to have that ROI standard, it's critical because it's going to save you time, and it's going to help you not try to go after every single deal, because one, there's just no time for that. And two, when you're just getting started, you need to try to be as laser focused as possible, because there's just so much to learn and it's easy to get overwhelmed and overburdened. So you need to, if you haven't already, kind of set a standard as to what that is for you. You need to do that. And I say this in the sense of everybody's is going to be a little bit different, right? So depending on where you live might play into what kind of ROI standard you can expect to get. If you live in San Francisco, you know, the Bay Area, some of these places that are a lot more expensive, you might not be getting 18 to 20% ROIs. You might be getting 10%, right? And so you have to take into consideration the area that you live. But don't sell yourself short, because I will tell you, you know, that you can get returns at 18%, 20%, even higher than 20%, right? They are out there. I can tell you, Kirk and I, we own multiple properties that get us around a 20%. We have some that get us even higher than 20%. So it's out there. The deals are out there. You just have to look for them. So, you know, those are two things that I wanted to go over before we actually jump into the analysis portion of this training tonight. So if you have questions, comments, throw them in the comment section for me. I'm going to go ahead and pull up my listing and those sorts of things. If you did not grab the property analyzer and you'd like to do that, you can go ahead and grab that. The link is in the, close that down. The link is in the post to this. So if you grab that, you'll be able to grab our property analyzer. If you want to get it now or you want to get it after the training, that is perfectly fine. But I'm actually going to go through and show you how I run numbers week in and week out, right? I do this probably 3 to 4 times a week, depending on if I see deals that come up. And it does not take me long. And I use our property analyzer that I have here. This is our basic property analyzer. And I'll be honest, I use the basic property analyzer first. Now we have a pro version, and I'll show it to you here in a little bit. It's a little bit more in depth. It's going to be a little bit more accurate because it's going to take in to consideration things like depreciation and those sorts of things. And so that it becomes a little more accurate. So we use that further down kind of our system. But when I'm looking just to get a quick and dirty ROI on a property to see if it's worth my time, I just pull up our easy basic property analyzer and I start with that because I just want an estimate. I don't need accurate numbers, but I need to know if the property is worth our time. So I'm going to have that here. I already have a property pulled up, and I'm starting with just a really simple one. So assuming that a lot of people here are newbies, I just pulled up a townhouse, a small 2-bedroom, 1-bath townhouse. I pulled it up in a town where we invest. We invest in some properties in Stephen City, Virginia. This is about 45 minutes away from where we used to live outside of Northern Virginia. If you know our story of when we first got started, we had to buy in this area because we lived closer into DC and it was too expensive for us. The houses were too expensive, the taxes were too expensive. And so we had to basically drive until we could find properties that fit our budget. And we ended up in this area, which Stephen City is just outside of Winchester, Virginia, if you know where that is. And so I just kind of pulled up a property here. This is a 2-bedroom, 1-bath townhouse. You can see it is for sale for $129,900. Right? And so it gives me, and I pulled this up just easily on Zillow. Definitely there's some information here as to where it is, brand new roof, upgraded energy efficient windows, new patio door. So when I'm going over a listing, when I see a deal, when I see a property that I'm potentially interested in, I obviously am looking at the price, I'm looking at the specs, I want to see the comment section, what's put there, right? So we know that some higher price things have been put in. Windows are super expensive. So if I see that there have been, upgraded windows, that's a plus because that's a huge bill. As an investor, that really can eat into your profits. Brand new roof. Roofs are another huge item that can cost a lot of money. So that's a really big perk with this property is that the roof has been replaced. It says here, we'll negotiate carpet allowance. So there's, that there's a little bit of wiggle room there. And then as I scroll down, I can kind of see just other general information. It's been on here for about 66 days. So the next thing that I'm going to do is just kind of scroll through the pictures, right? So I'm just going to go through this process like I'm doing it myself. So I'm going through, okay, the carpet doesn't look too bad, but they did say that there's room for carpet allowance, so that's good to know. Walls don't look too bad. I mean, it looks pretty clean. That pink is a little scary. I would potentially go in there and repaint. Just kind of looking at this, and this is what I do. I go through and I look and I say, okay, if I'm going to have to go in there and do some work, I want an estimate of what I'm going to do. I obviously am going to go in and I'm going to paint the walls for sure. Kitchen is a little old. Maybe with non-pink walls, it wouldn't look as bad per se. As it does right now with the pink walls. But overall, again, this person must have liked pink. You can see there's some older ceiling fans, so that might be something that I would go in and consider replacing just to, give it a little bit more of a more modern look whenever people look at it. Again, we've got the pink. So definitely I would go in. This looks odd. It looks like the washer and dryer was put into a bedroom. Just looking at this, so that might be something that I would have an issue with. It doesn't look like it's in like a utility room or anything, so that would be something that I would need to take a look at. Bathroom doesn't look too bad. Yeah, it's a little dated, but it doesn't look bad. And it's got some outdoor space with a fence, so that's nice for people. The unit, I would definitely want to check out the year of that because that's a big ticket expense and big ticket item. So overall, the roof is good, so it's not bad. So if I was going to go after this property, I would probably go in and paint the walls and maybe do a couple of cosmetic things with light fixtures, door handles, those sorts of things. So not a lot of money in terms of renovations. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to throw up my property analyzer. So I see here that 2-bedroom, 1-bath, they're asking $129,900. Now, I'm going to stop here for a second and try not to get off on a tangent on one of my topics I love to talk about, which is learning your market and having a pulse on your market so you know when a deal pops up. But I would say that if you are just getting started and you're looking at properties and you have no concept of the listing price as opposed to like a comparable, So if you don't know, if you look at this and you say 129, okay, it's in my budget. Let's say your budget's 150, but you have no idea if that's an average price, is it overpriced, is it underpriced? If you have no idea, then you need to start spending some time finding out what your market, what's going on in your market, and what I like to call getting a pulse on your market. You need to be able to spot a property and say, oh, wow, a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, those typically go for, 140. So I can already see that this could potentially be a deal, right? So if you don't know your market yet, and if you're just getting started, you're probably not going to know your market, then you're going to need to do a little bit of legwork to find out maybe where you want to start for a potential price or asking price for this, or what you're going to offer. So what I did earlier today was I pulled up some other recently sold properties. So you can see here in the same area, I pulled up, here's a 2-bedroom, 1-bath that sold in October for $122,000, Chinkapin Drive, so it's not far from this property. Here's a 3-bedroom, 1-bath, so it's bigger, that sold for $142,500. And here we see another 2-bedroom, 1-bath, maybe 1.5 bath, that sold for $120,000 in October, right? So I can see that potentially, in terms of it might be a little bit high. But I know that some of those bigger ticket items were recently updated. So that's, definitely a plus on my side. But either way, I never typically go in and offer full price unless it's a bidding war. So let's just say that my target acquisition price is $124,500, right? So I'm going to pull my analyzer up and I'm going to put that information in here. If I am going the financing route and I'm planning to use, let's just say for the sake of the example, I'm planning to use traditional financing. It's a single family property. So I will have to put 20% down since I'm not living in the property. I will be using a conventional loan. And if you want to learn more about that, you can head on over to rentalrookie.com. A lot of these things I'm mentioning, we go into detail in some of our trainings, so you can find more information out about that. But so my purchase price, target price is $124,500. I'm going to have to put 20% down, which means that I'm going to have a down payment total of around almost $25,000 to get into the property. Gives me my loan amount. Let's say, for sake of terms, I'll say interest rate 4.875. It rounds up to 4.88, and I'm going to have a 30-year term. So there's kind of my basic mortgage information. After I plug that information in, then it gives me my payment with principal. So each month, just my payment with principal and interest is going to be $527, right? Closing costs, you can determine what those might be. If you ask for a seller credit in your offer, then you might be able to get your closing costs covered. So that just kind of depends on, your situation. That can be something that you do. For the sake of this, we typically ask for seller credit, and that's something that we usually kind of fight for in our deals. And so that way we don't have to pay closing costs, right? So I might put that at 0, or maybe I even put in $1,500 just in case I only get a small portion of the seller credit or seller assist. Annual property taxes. So I'm going to look for those on this. So I scroll down. I see HOA, tax annual amount, $478.20. So I see that here. So I'm going to come back over here and I'm going to put that in, and I will tell you that because I know this market and we invest there, I know that that sounds about accurate for property taxes there. Property taxes in this area are so cheap. It's one of the main reasons why we started investing there, was because the prices were competitive. They were, lower than where we lived, and the property taxes were just outrageously low. And so, when I look at that, I can see that, that goes along with what I know. Now, I want to show you quickly, I also pulled up this listing on realtor.com so that you could see kind of the same. And so a lot of it's the same pictures are here. Same information is here, but as you scroll down, and this is one of the things I don't like about realtor.com, is that they don't give you a lot of information when it comes to taxes and things like that. Like, I rarely ever find tax information on realtor.com, and taxes are huge. So, that kind of drives me crazy about realtor.com, even though I use it a lot. So my little tidbit, or I guess my nugget of tips for you tonight is to, when you're looking and you find a property that you're interested in, maybe check it out on a couple of different sites and see if the information is accurate or not. Because if I would scroll down, and I would use this, right, the payment calculator that we see, this tells me that the property taxes are $149 a month. And obviously, when we look at this, they're only $478 a year. So that would be, you would be overestimating those taxes by a long shot if you would take that. So when you find, this is just kind of a sidebar, when you find a property that you're interested in, check it out on multiple sites to see if the information is accurate or not. All right, so annual insurance, I'm going to say probably just from my own experience, maybe about $200. Our condos and townhouses, the insurance for those are usually pretty cheap. Ours can range anywhere. I mean, we've had some in the hundreds up to like $250. And you know what, I might do $250 just to overestimate a little bit. But again, that just comes from my experience. If you're just getting started, a good phone call for you to make would be to maybe whoever you use for insurance now, for auto or home, or maybe reaching out to an insurance agent and just having a chat with them and getting kind of estimates. Just ask them if they can, you're looking to go down this investing journey, you want to invest in rental property, can you give me just, an estimate of what maybe insurance looks like for townhouses or condos or multi-units, duplexes, single families, fourplexes, and then you have a little bit of an idea when you start to run numbers of what that could look like for you. So that's another tidbit I would say, is reach out to an insurance agent and have that conversation. All right, moving on, vacancy rate. I'm going to get to that in a little bit. I'm going to kind of skip over it now. Renovation. So if you're planning to go in and do any kind of renovations up front, what do you estimate that being? So in this case, I would probably just, off of the pictures, I would go in and paint for sure. So, if I was going to have the whole place painted by a painter, we're probably looking at about $1,500. I think that's what we have paid before for an entire townhouse to be painted. This is my first property and I was, going in and doing this on my own, then I probably would paint it all myself, which is what Kirk and I did with our very first rental property. We painted the whole thing ourselves, right, and saved the money. So renovations, you're looking at probably cost of paint. You're looking at, so maybe a couple $100, let's say $250, to go in and at least paint it. Right? Paint it, freshen it up. The carpet, you can negotiate in a carpet allowance, so that will be kind of maybe taken care of in your offer and negotiations, so I would leave that alone. Advertising and listing fees, we typically list on free sites, Craigslist, Zillow, Realtor.com, HotPads, Trulia, all those sorts of things. Facebook now. The only time that I would really use any kind of advertising fees here would be if I use any kind of Facebook ads. And I don't do that on all of our properties. So a property like this, I probably wouldn't do it. So I would say that I have zero advertising fees. So I'm looking at a total here in these upfront expenses at $250. So now I'm looking at total cash invested on this property of $26,650, right? So now I'm moving over to monthly expenses. All right, so principal and interest, you can see it automatically calculates over here. The white boxes automatically calculate. Property tax broken down by month, property insurance broken down by month. Management fees, if you're planning to use management, you might want to put that fee in here. Even if you're not planning to use management, maybe if you think eventually down the road you might want to use it, you might want to include it here or not if you're just getting started. If you're paying any kind of utilities, you're going to put that here. Typically, on our townhouse and condo and kind of single family properties, we don't pay the utilities. We have the tenants pay the utilities. We typically only pay utilities on our student rentals because kids like the kind of all-inclusive nature of a student rental having all utilities paid. And the only other time that we don't pay or that we do pay utilities is with our duplexes where single families turned into duplexes. And so some of the utilities are not split. So in this case, when you're dealing with like a single family unit or dwelling, we don't pay any of the utilities. So that would be zero. Outdoor maintenance, we typically have them take care of it as well, especially because this is a townhouse. Snow removal, those sorts of things are taken care of beside their parking spot. They would have to take care of their grass. But that is something, again, with single family dwellings, we require that our tenants take care of that. We do not take care of that. We only take care of outdoor stuff like that, again, when we're dealing with like our our student rentals and those sorts of things. HOA condo fee. This is a townhouse, so we're going to have a monthly HOA fee. And I did see it here. If I scroll down, we're looking at $47 a month. So I come over here. I'm going to put that in. And so we're looking at the total all in of $635 a month for this property. So that's what it's going to cost us each month to maintain this property, right? All right, so now we get into the income portion of the property analyzer. And so this is where you have to determine what you would actually charge for rent each month. And again, this kind of goes back to my harping on you having a pulse on your market and getting a feel for what these types of properties rent for. So again, I did a little bit of heavy work before I did this training tonight, and I went and I took some screenshots of some current properties that are rentals in the same area. So here we have a 2-bedroom, 1-bath. That's listed for $1,000 a month. I know that this street is right around the same street as this one. Here we have one at $975. Here we have one at $950, right? So we're looking at the range of $950 to $1,000 in terms of renting this property. So knowing that, I would probably shoot, and knowing that I'm going to go in and I'm going to paint the property, so it's going to have a fresh coat of paint on the whole thing, and potentially have brand new carpet because of the carpet allowance that it says in the description of the property. Because I have those two new fresh things, and I can make sure to market that and talk about the fact that the whole place has been repainted, there's brand new carpet, then I would shoot for the higher end, and I would shoot for $1,000, right? So you go ahead and you put in your monthly rental income, and that gives you what your cash flow would be each month, your gross annual income, net yearly income. So now that I know what my monthly rental income is, I always like to come back and plug in the vacancy rate. So in our basic property analyzer, we have this as a dollar figure amount. And what I typically like to do is put in 1 month's kind of total expenses, right? So we see that it costs us $635 a month to run this property. So I like to put in at least 1 month's or 1 month's monthly expenses in the vacancy rate, and assuming that maybe a tenant doesn't stay more than a year and the property is going to be vacant for about a month while we get it changed over, right? In our pro property analyzer, we look at it more as a percentage, and you'll hear that a lot with if you do research into vacancy rates. A lot of people like to use it as a percentage. They might use 8%, 10%. If you talk to a realtor, they will actually give you kind of a projected expected vacancy rate for an area. But what I'm doing, just again, this quick and dirty analysis, I like to just kind of throw in 1 month's monthly expenses and put them in there, and that way I've got something accounted for that vacancy rate. And we tend to get our properties rented pretty quickly, so we don't typically tend to run into too many issues with vacancy rates. So there you have it, guys. Here we go. We've got our income. So monthly rental income is $1,000. We're looking to make $365 a month. That's positive cash flow. That gives us a gross annual income of $12,000, and we're netting, after everything is paid for on this property, we're netting $4,383, which gives us about a 16% ROI, right? So I threw those quick numbers in. Again, when I'm not talking through the whole process, this literally takes me, I don't know, probably 2 minutes, 3 minutes. It's just the hardest part is finding all the information that I need. But I throw those numbers in and I can quickly see. So earlier we used the example of 15% being kind of your standard line in the sand ROI. If I see this at 16%, then I might say, okay, you know what? I'm going to make some phone calls on it. And if I can even get this at an even lower price, maybe that can make my ROI go up even more, right? Let's say I got this at 120, right? That just makes my ROI go up another percentage point, right? So when I look at that and I see that the quick estimate ROI is above my line in the sand, then I can make the decision of whether or not I want to pursue and start making phone calls and maybe go see the property, right? But it's super easy. Use to use some sort of analyzer, you can use our analyzer. There's a lot of apps out there as well that have like mortgage calculators and those sorts of things on there. But this really gives you an idea of what your income is versus your expenses. And it also gives you kind of an outlook over after 5 years, what kind of balance you're going to have on the mortgage, the equity that you should have, how much money the property would have made you. It gives you a 10-year outlook as well. And so, there's definitely a lot of great information. If you use our property analyzer as well, down here on the tabs, and I'll just kind of show this to you quickly, there are different tabs for different types of properties. So there's a multi-unit tab, and really the main difference is here in the unit income. You can break out the incomes by unit, and we have a student rental tab that we use as well, and the difference really here is breaking down the income, because most places, most landlords, when it comes to student rentals, charge per student per semester. So this is broken down that way. So you can put in the per student per semester rate. Let's say you charge $2,700 a semester. You can put that in and it will automatically kind of multiply it by 2 for each semester, right? So just kind of a quick overview of our property analyzer. But you can kind of see it's actually, guys, a pretty easy process to run the numbers. The hardest part is really finding the information and finding the numbers that you need. Sometimes you'll find listings that don't have a lot of information on them. And so you're kind of stuck maybe having to just estimate, guesstimate, throw numbers in, or maybe stuck having to make a couple of phone calls or send out a couple of emails to get some of those numbers if you're really interested in the property to see if it's worth your time. So, I hope that, as I'm going through this tonight, you see that the actual running of the numbers is not that overwhelming. It's actually a pretty easy process if you have some sort of tool or resource to use to help you along the journey. And if you have easy access to that, I mean, you can run these numbers quickly at any time and be able to know whether or not a property is worth going after or not. So, I hope that this was helpful. If you have questions, comments, throw them in the comment section. I'm going to briefly kind of show you our Pro Property Analyzer since I'm here. This is our Pro Property Analyzer. It's available in our Rental Rookie Pro community. And you can see it's a little bit more number heavy, if you want to put it that way. But it goes into a little bit more detail. You can put in the property address, square feet, those sorts of things, how long you plan to hold the property, gives you rent revenue assumptions, your finance strategy if you're planning to, go mortgage, if you're planning to go cash, those sorts of things. The investment capital here is one of the main differences, taxes and depreciation. So it allows you to kind of put in your applicable tax bracket, your depreciation, land allocation. Over here it gives you kind of quick cash flow look at property acquisition, what you're going to buy it for, operating expenses, right? And then once you input all this information, then you can come over here to the executive summary and it gives you another kind of look at your key property metrics. So it breaks all the stuff down and gives you some graphics to help you kind of understand cash flow. It also takes into consideration depreciation write-off and what that kind of looks like over the course of time of owning the property. So again, this is our Pro Property Analyzer. Guys, I don't use this when I'm just running quick numbers. When I'm just running quick numbers, I use just a quick property analyzer, our basic one, because I don't need it to be 100% accurate. I need it to give me an idea of whether or not the property is worth going after. And then once I actually get in whether or not the property is worth going after, and then, I had like a weird sound there. And then if the property is worth going after and I start to get more information, then I will go to that Pro Property Analyzer and start using it. So, definitely I think when you're just starting out, I think using the basic one is perfectly fine. So I want to take a minute here and check out your questions. Jamie asked, you're talking about gross ROI. Is it more important to look at your net ROI? Yeah, I like to know what my gross ROI or my gross just like return is going to be. Like I said, on this on this analysis I looked at, it was going to be, I think it was $12,000, which is good to know. But really what I want to focus on is net. That's really what I focus on. I focus on net cash flow. What's my net positive cash flow? What's my net ROI? So what's my actual return on investment of money that I'm going to make based off of the actual initial investment, initial capital that was put into the deal. Ben said just closed on one yesterday, 55K, 1,200 a month, 5K in prepare. That's awesome. Congrats, Ben. I don't know if you're still on here, but that is super cool. Congrats to you. Definitely, I'd love to see pictures and have you tell us more information. So, give us a post in the community, give us some pictures and fill us in on this deal. That's awesome. So if there's any other questions, comments, if you are watching this not live and watching it later on this week, if you have questions or concerns about anything, throw them in the comment section. I will definitely get back to you and answer your questions. Otherwise, if you want to learn more about investing in rental property, or you feel like you are kind of ready to take that plunge, I guess, and really commit to going through some more live trainings or going through some more trainings and courses and those sorts of things to really kind of help propel you in this investing journey, you can always head on over to rentalrookie.com. You can check out our brand new pro community that's full of training videos and resources and all of those sorts of things that are going to help you, that we've put together specifically based off of what you guys have been asking to help you in your journey. So if you're looking to learn more, head on over there, and we'd love to see you within our pro community. Otherwise, again, leave any questions or comments that you have. I will get back to you, and I will see you guys next week for another live training. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next week.